Good evening. Welcome to the November 7th session of the Bellingham City Council. Bellingham City Council meets all requirements of the State of Washington Open Meetings Act. Please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We're just going to give Elizabeth a second before we do roll call because she's balancing many things right now, so we can wait. Just to give you some information, because I know some of you might be new to our council, but just the way our agenda goes is the first thing we do is we hold our public hearing, and then we hold public comment. So if there's any of you here for public comment, just know that comes right after the hearing. We're powering up.
Hard to do without.
Thanks for being patient. We know technology is sometimes our friend, but not always, so we bear with it. I think we need on-hold music. What do you think? No? Brian, I can hold up slides for you if you'd like, and we can just go like this. No? We could do that? No?
There it goes, there it goes.
All right, thank you very much. Brian Henshaw, Finance Department.
Hold on one sec, Brian. We still have to do roll call.
Okay.
And yeah, just a couple things here.
April Barker. Here. Dan Hamill.
Here.
Jean Knudsen.
Here.
Michael Lillequist.
Here.
Roxanne Murphy.
Here.
Pinky Vargas.
Here.
Terry Borneman.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to start this evening with a public hearing on the City of Bellingham's 2017-18 biannual budget. The preliminary budget was presented on October 10th. We have also had a public hearing, and tonight, we've also had a public hearing of our forecasted budget last session on October 24th, and tonight our public hearing provides citizens the opportunity to comment on the city's proposed budget. And we're going to start with a financial review of the third quarter, and I'm going to turn this over to Brian Henshaw, our Finance Director.
Okay, thank you very much, Brian Henshaw, Finance. This is a combination of the third quarter review and also the overall financial status of the city. It's timely because we've been discussing the budget and budget modifications, and tonight we'll go right into the public hearing on the proposed budget. I will go rather quick on the first part of this. This presentation is online along with all of the preliminary budget information and the changes to date. Through September, the job growth has been fairly good for Whatcom County as well as the state and the country. We are at about 89,000 jobs in Whatcom County, averaging a little over 1,000 jobs more than last year for the first 9 months. Citywide revenue has grown from $168 million to about $175 million. That's a 4% growth. Pretty much across the board growth in all categories. The largest growth here, 11% over last year, is for grants, entitlements, and revenue sharing, largely due to the contract for services with District 8, which I'll talk about in just a minute. Also, the only negative here is a negative 1% growth over last year is for interfund sales and services. This has more to do with an accounting change. We are no longer invoicing between departments and funds for services provided. Citywide expenditures, $159 million through 9 months. That's a negative 4% over last year, but you can see all of that has to do with the decrease in capital expenditures. Last year, we've been talking about in Public Works, a large amount of capital projects were done. This year, we have about half as much as we've done last year. That's about negative 53%. But I did want to point out here that operational expenses are up 7%. So operational expenses are growing faster than our revenues in general. And that has to do with two things. One is the retro pay that was paid out for the prior contracts that were settled this year. All of that now has been paid out in August of this year. And also in planning, the home levy fund has had some large projects that we've funded, which attributes to a large increase here on the home levy funds. General revenue, fund revenue is also increased by 5%, grew from $51 million to just over $53 million. As I pointed out earlier, the grants and entitlement, the revenue sharing, we are now providing fire service in Fire District 8. That's a contract for services. Last year we had $200,000 contract with them, and this year the second half, it's now a $700,000 contract, and it grows to $1.4 million next year. That's an 80% increase. Interest in rentals and bonds, this is down 13%. Lower interest earnings this year on our investments, but interest rates have just now started climbing, so that should go back towards budget. On the expense side in the general fund, this is a breakdown by department. All departments through 9 months are at or below budget. You'll see again that we are only 3% growth, including capital. Last year we purchased the fireboat for fire suppression on the water. This year we have very little capital, so that's attributing for most of the decrease. But operationally, again, due to the service contracts, retro pay, and settling of contracts, overall operational growth is 6% in the general fund. General fund categories, this shows the same expenditures in slightly different format. Again, we have those two categories that are down so far. Intergovernmental services has to do with both jail expenses and other election and survey expenses that will happen in the fourth quarter of this year. That should revert back to budget very soon, and those are one-time expenses that will happen between now and the end of the year. And then again, just as I explained, last year we had the fireboat purchase and had a large capital expenditure in the general fund, and this year we don't. Street fund is showing growth of about 6%. Other revenue is down also for, we had a state loan to pay for our LED streetlight program, our project that started last year and was completed this year. It's almost complete. And then investment income is off for less money in the fund and also lower return on investments year to date. Street fund expenditures operationally have increased 17%, but you see again a large decrease in the capital outlay so far this year. A lot of these projects are multi-year projects. We talked about them earlier this afternoon as the large road projects that are coming up next year. This is kind of an off year. So overall, we are below last year at this point by almost $3.5 million or 29%. The next enterprise fund to talk about is the water fund. You're familiar with the metering project, state mandate that converts all unmetered to meter project is now almost complete. We'll have a few houses that will be converted early next year, and that'll be the end of this project. So you see the revenue going from unmetered to metered. And then we also have a large increase here for system development charges. These are hookup, the new development, as we've seen a lot of new construction and development happening over the last year. Water fund on the expense side, operationally again, also up about 15%, largely due to both retro pay, but also just operational maintenance contracts instead of capital projects, so they're above the line instead of below the line. You see here that capital, we are 100%, about $1 million greater than last year in the water fund. Overall, total expenditures have increased 18% in the water fund. Wastewater fund, just point out the sewer fund, basically large increase here is due to the contribution for the wastewater treatment plant of $2.4 million from Lake Whatcom Sewer District. So they chose to pay this all at once and borrow the money themselves rather than pay it over the 20 years that we originally agreed to. So the whole of that money came in this year. On the expense side, again, capital is down, operational expenses are up. And then very quickly, the three other major enterprise funds, just to point out, Storm and Surface Water Fund 430. Ted mentioned today that we did an awful lot of capital projects last year. This year, we're reverting back more to the normal amount of capital projects, so that's why revenues are down. In the solid waste fund, this large increase in revenues is due to the interfund loan that was repaid. We loaned money to the watershed to pay off their line of credit. That was all money that came in this year. And in development services fund, you see we've had a lot of permit activity, but it's the same as last year. So again, we're showing a lot of permit activity for the future. Talk very briefly about investments. Currently, we have $183 million invested. A lot of this is restricted money. It has to do with either the bond requirements or for the funds that are restricting it per policy. Our current increase, now we're earning about 0.93% on our money, but compared to the benchmark and the state pools, we're doing a little bit better than them, and it's just over 1% year to date. This is the breakdown of how our investments are and what we're invested in. Okay, and now I'd like to just that's the end of the third quarter, if you have any questions about that, first of all.
Councilmember Hamel.
Page 10, the water fund revenues, the SDCs, the service or system development charges went up by 25%. Is that trend line expected to continue into 2017 with the amount of building that's been being done in Bellingham?
Yeah. As Rick has mentioned, in the Development Services Fund, we've seen it slowing down, not that it's a decrease, but just slowing down in the growth rate. And also the type of permits are switching from zoning and short plats into more building. So I think we've seen the sharp increase, and now it'll just trending slower, but still an increase.
Councilmember Lillquist.
Thank you, Pinky. So, Brian, I have a small question on page 12. We're switching from unmetered to metered water. This is sewer charges, but I expected the matched unmetered sewer to drop or at least be lower than a 5% increase Am I wrong in tying those two so closely together?
It is similar. However, a lot of the sewer charges were industrial sewer charges and were already metered, so you don't see the same correlation, direct correlation that you do for the water meters to the sewer meters.
Thank you.
Council, any other questions? Okay, go ahead and proceed, Brian.
Right. Thank you. All right, so at the end of 2015, the city had $105.5 million of debt. And what I'm showing here is the total amount of debt, how it's grown since the recession in particular. And then this trend line here is debt per capita. And so we're up to about $1,200 per person in the city of Bellingham. Since the recession, we've used debt to pay for the wastewater treatment plant, $55 million project, which attributes for most of this. But we've also used it to maintain our level of service and to pay for some of the programs that we no longer receive state or federal dollars for. There's two components. The first component is water and sewer, or revenue bonds. We use the water and sewer utilities combined to backstop or pay for all of the bonds that are issued. And as I mentioned, these two bonds here that go out 30 years are to pay for the wastewater treatment plant. Again, $55 million. After 2018 here in 2019, you'll see that we have annual debt service of just over $4 million all the way out till 2043. The other type of debt that the city owns is general obligation debt. This is backed by the full faith and credit of the city. These are used for Civic Field. We use these for the QECB bonds. We talked about these today to pay for energy efficiency projects, $6 million in the city. Also, the Public Facility District is part of this. We have about $28 million outstanding in general obligation bonds. About half of that is for the Public Facility District. Public Works loans, we've also increased the amount of loans that we've taken as the state has issued less grants and more grants loan combinations. Public Works has used these to fund Padden Creek, Squalicum Creek, the lights, also the regional stormwater facility, and I&I projects for stormwater and sewer. We also have several types of restricted funds or special revenue funds. I just updated this for the Greenways Levy 4 that just passed for the next 7 years. But we've had a number of Greenways levies, all 4 of these. Public Facility District is another type of restricted fund that we have. Transportation Benefit District, Home Fund, PEG Fund, and Watershed. So these are either state or council policies and restrictions. It's generating just over $18 million. And those monies are used for those projects only. So now we'll talk about some of the unfunded needs of the city. Earlier this year, we started on the 6-year comp plan, put out a request from all the departments or needs for capital. The total 6-year CFP request was $196 million. For the next 2 years, we had about $90 million of requests or needs identified by city staff. What we funded, so the first 2 years of the budget need to be funded. We got that down to about $70 million, and you'll see each year $9 million and $11 million, or almost $20 million of unfunded requests just in the next 2 years. So what we do with those is we cut some projects or we postpone some projects. A lot of these unfunded requests are just put into the out years and are now part of this $196 million. But we do not have a way to pay for all of these projects or prioritize all these projects right now. I talked about this earlier. This is the Public Facility District bonds. These are the bonds that were used to pay for renovations and repairs to the Mount Baker Theater and also to the Art and Children's Museum. We do receive sales tax rebates from the state. Those are forecasted to be $17.3 million between now and 2027. But our debt service, which assumed that we would have sales tax growth of 4.5% every single year, We are not obviously having that after the recession. The debt service is $21.5 million, so there'll be a shortfall of approximately, or forecasted to be, $4.2 million between now and 2027. So this is money that we're going to have to find in other places of the city. Fire and police pension. These are for the uniformed officers, fire and police officers that worked prior to and after 1977. This part of their pension is not covered by the state. This is the city's obligation. They are eligible for retirement and disability and survivor, also long-term care and medical and other expenses in their retirement. These are the assets for the fire, the police. Our total assets of just $15 million, and the actuarial forecasted unfunded portion is about $28 million. So again, during the life expectancy, this is what this is calculated on. As long as those people are eligible and alive, they will be paid for these services or these benefits. Remediation estimates. This is the latest and greatest estimate for remediation costs. These have to do with the environmental cleanups, mainly down on the waterfront. The city is totally or partially with the port responsible for these 4 cleanups. The total estimated cost, although we do not have the final studies done or the final plans or consent decrees finalized, is about $32 million. We are hopeful that the state will provide half that in MOTCA funds. That would be $16 million. This $16 million is currently unfunded and will have to be paid for in the future as those projects move up and actually are under construction. The last slide here shows the work plan additions that we've been discussing over the work session since October 10th. You'll see a high-level summary of the things that were added into each department or by department. The largest one on here is new financial software. It's about a $2.5 million project over the next 2 to 3 years. Also in solid waste, we are increasing this transfer to pay for some of those remediation expenditures. And also a priority for the mayor was to add police officers. So we're adding 2 police officers in each year for a total of 4 officers. And then we've also added 1 person in finance to work on the financial software implementation, and another one in IT department to help with training and supervision, and also the help desk. So when you total all those up, the beginning estimated reserve number for the general fund now is $17 million to start the year next year. Our current budgeted revenue is about $77 million. Total budgeted expenses stand at $77.6, a budgeted deficit of just under $800,000 next year. Ending reserves would be $16 million, but we have a restriction or a policy to keep back 12% of expenditures. That's about 9.3. And then we also have $1.1 million of legal environmental funds that are reserved for future liability for having to do with the remediation cleanup and legal expenses associated with that. If you carry this out again throughout 2018, just based on the budget, we will end 2018 with about $4.3 million of unrestricted general fund reserves. So that's what we're forecasting right now as the budget stands and revenue stands for the forecast. So any questions on that?
Councilmember Barker.
Just to clarify with our viewing audience, all of this assumed there was no EMS levy, correct? This will get updated if there was an EMS
Correct.
levy approved.
The budget did not make any assumptions for either of the levies, and those would be done through adjustments pending the final outcome. Green Wave's obviously passed, and we'll come back to council on a budget amendment for that. And the EMS is still, I believe, too close to call yet, so we'll keep our fingers crossed on that one.
Council members, any additional questions? No? Brian, anything else before we ask for public comment?
And not for me. I think we'll open it up for public comment. I would say only that we would take written comments all the way up till December 5th. You can send those to me.
Okay.
And that's,
So we're going to have public comment, and again, this is for the hearing only, so if you've signed up for general public comment, that will come right after our hearing. So this is if you have comments on the budget. Okay, we have one person, Chris Steele, if you wanted to come on down.
Hi, my name is Chris Diley, and I'm homeless here in Bellingham. I'll just go ahead and read the letter that I've written down. It reiterates a little bit that I spoke of last time. This is regarding, and this is on the public hearing. During the October 24th, 2016 City Council meetings, Councilmember Pinky Vargas, while chairing the meeting, referred to affordable housing as home improvement, as if the homeless crisis were a joking matter. That followed Bellingham Financial Director Brian Henshaw declining to respond to my questioning why almost double the amount of tax revenue is going for parks and recreation, greenways, than affordable housing, according to the numbers he had just displayed on the screen during his presentation. Vargas had asked Henshaw if he would like to respond to the point, with Henshaw mumbling, "Why even bother?" Vargas said, "It doesn't matter," in affirming the point was not worthy of a response. Numerous council members laughed out loud. Vargas then explained the hearing was on the property tax levy, as if correcting me for being off topic. Yet I was specifically on topic, as it was a public hearing on the revenue projections, including an increase in property tax levy. On November 8, 2016, voters passed a greenways tax levy overwhelmingly. Since at least February of 2016, the waiting list for housing has been closed. A homeless individual can no longer even get on a waiting list, which in 2008 was a 2 to 3 year wait, then in 2011 a 3 to 5 year wait. Police sweeps of homeless intents continues, as one is directed to Nonprofit Opportunity Council, wherein they are told a lottery poll system is now used to choose homeless people at random. That's very convenient, not in housing homeless, but in obfuscating the issue by there being no accountability in an esoteric and arbitrary system. Who will be chosen? Who has been chosen? Has anyone been chosen? Moreover, Opportunity Council requires a person to sign a release of Social Security information. Why shouldn't proof of income from Social Security or DSHS, etc., suffice? Why force the homeless to give out personal information to a private entity unnecessarily? Meanwhile, a homeless person must stay in an overcrowded shelter where all the sicknesses and stress are, exacerbating any physical or psychiatric issues they might already have. Finally, the entire homeless issue is emblematic of Noam Chomsky's pointing out that when compared to all other industrialized countries, the U.S. has the worst tax and transfer system in reducing poverty. That's from Understanding Power, Chapter 10, footnote 28. Why is such dysfunction considered nothing more than a laughing matter to our elected officials? So that's my perspective, and I just wanted to object to the greenways levy being passed when we don't have an affordable housing levy that's up like Seattle had one passed in August, if that would even be helpful. Thank you. I got 20 seconds. I guess my mind just went blank, so I'll have to leave it at that. But
That's okay, you don't have to use
I would say that Brian Henshaw spoke with me before the meeting tonight and tried to remedy the situation, but I really was offended because I was laughed at that meeting. And this shows up on BTV 10. I'm a homeless person. I like being laughed at in public. I take this very seriously. I've been living out of bags, and when I got here, I had a minor stroke. I was living out of trash bags in the bushes. So it's not a laughing matter. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak on the public hearing on our budget? Going once, twice, 3 times. I'm going to close the public hearing, but again, we will accept comments, written comments to, if you could send them to our finance department by December 5th, and I will close that public hearing, and we will move on to public comment this evening. So for those of you who have not been in our council chambers before, just a couple guidelines. We do have a clock here. You have 3 minutes to speak for public comment. Once you've reached 2.5 minutes, Elizabeth is going to give a nice little gentle ding to let you know to wrap it up, that we're almost out of time. And also we want to provide a fair, safe environment so there's no jeering and no clapping during public comment, so everyone has freedom to say what they need to say. And lastly, if I don't do a great job of pronouncing your name, please forgive me, and do state your name when you come up here. We don't need your address, but if you could just, for the record, state your name. So I'm going to call out the first couple names, and if you could come down and line up here. Michael Shavaro, Von Leso, Thomas Payne, and Victoria Matti, or maybe Mady.
Hi, my name is Michael Chiverio. Can you hear me? Okay. I'm here representing the League of Women Voters, and the League was under the impression there was going to be a hearing regarding Terry's amendment to the comp plan tonight, and they asked me to come and speak. I'll go ahead and read the League's position, even so, and you'll have it in your written record in case someone is not able to come back when the actual hearing occurs. So I'm speaking today not as an individual, but on behalf of the League of Women Voters of Bellingham and Whatcom County. This statement was drafted by the League's co-presidents and members of the League's Advocacy Committee. The League of Women Voters of Bellingham and Whatcom County has long held the position that advisory bodies such as the Bellingham Planning Commission should be composed of a diverse membership which is representative of the community it serves. We recognize the pivotal importance of the composition of the Planning Commission in assuring that planning decisions serve the interests of all citizens. When the majority of the membership of this commission is composed of individuals with economic interests and/or experience in a particular area, it is unreasonable to expect that the recommendations they provide will fairly represent the interests of other segments of our society on a systematic basis. It also alters the perception of fairness. We believe it is the responsibility of our council to provide a framework for planning committee structure that will minimize the probability of unfair influence by any one segment of the population. In particular, because the real estate and development industry have a significant financial stake in land use recommendations, great care should be exercised to limit their influence on the Commission while simultaneously including their expertise. This industry should inform but not control the Planning Commission. Councilman Borneman's proposal is a necessary step toward ensuring that recommendations of the Planning Commission are consistently fair and unbiased now and in the future. It is in the best interest of our community. Therefore, we urge the City Council to adopt these amendments to the Bellingham Municipal Code 2.42 to alter the composition of the Planning Commission. Today, especially when trust in government is at an all-time low, the opportunity to make our local government more representative cannot and must not be dismissed. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. John, I see that I totally butchered your name now that I see it's you.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Linville and County Council members. I'm sorry, City Council members, but I came to talk about the County Council.
I'd take it back.
I request that you support Councilmember Borneman's ordinance to address the public perception of occupational bias and ensure balance on the Bellingham Planning Commission. I served 2 terms on the Whatcom County Planning Commission from 2005 to 2013, and during that time we were involved in extensive public hearings on proposals to increase land areas and densities available for development in Bellingham's urban fringe. As county planners, we had the opportunity to meet jointly with the Bellingham Planning Commission over the course of these hearings. I suggest it was the County Planning Commission that best represented the positions of a majority of Bellingham residents regarding environmental preservation and quality of life in neighborhoods, particularly as they related to containing urban sprawl, the Kaitak-Larrabee Springs project, and overambitious land use proposals for the U Street urban growth area and the King Mountain urban growth area. County Planning Commission members are appointed by the majority vote of the Whatcom County Council. Yours is appointed by your mayor. I submit that should change. The citizens of Bellingham deserve more than adequate representation on this most important board that deals with land use, and the Bellingham City Council should take an active part in choosing that membership. Our membership included 9 individuals, and I'll give you their backgrounds. 1 apple farmer and businessman, 1 dairy farmer and businessman, 1 sociology professor at Western, 1 realtor, 1 attorney, 1 shellfish farmer and business owner, 1 business owner specializing in the restoration and development of downtown Bellingham buildings, 1 building contractor, and a marketing manager for a manufacturer of material handling equipment. Of these 9 planning commissioners, only 3 could be categorized as being employed directly in the local construction and real estate business. And I can tell you from personal experience that this planning commission was efficient, effective, and truly representative of the citizens of this diverse county. We earned a high degree of public trust and support, and I believe that it was our diverse background that supported that public trust. Therefore, I strongly urge you to pass Councilmember Borneman's ordinance and restore a balance that is now lacking on your Planning Commission. Thank you.
Thank you, John. I have Thomas Payne, Victoria Mady, and then Joseph McDonald.
Hi, my name is Thomas Payne. I've been a resident of Bellingham for 20 years. I learned that there were going to be some people here tonight asking that you consider Bellingham becoming a sanctuary city. I'm opposed to that for several reasons. One of the main reasons is we've seen what happened to Kate Steinle in San Francisco as a result of that city being a sanctuary city. The person that shot her had been deported 4 or 5 times, I'm not sure which one. But because the law enforcement's hands were tied, he was not turned over to ICE, so he was able to stay in that city and shoot her to death right in front of her father. You had spoke about your budget earlier. I know I'm not supposed to speak about that now, but it's actually, you might want to consider this. If you refuse to comply with federal immigration law, the city and state can be stripped of federal grants, etc. Bellingham will not be eligible for law enforcement grants and could be subject to civil and criminal penalties. In other words, you will be depriving our local law enforcement of federal funds, and you could face lawsuits. Under the new guidelines, if you choose to allow our city to become a sanctuary city, you may be forced to repay every dollar you have received under those grants. 4,000 people a year are murdered by illegals, and sanctuary cities foster that type of crime. Like I said, I've lived here for 20 years. I love my city, and I believe Bellingham should be a sanctuary for the citizens, not illegals. The person that's going to be speaking after me speaks perfect English. She's going to be speaking here because she wants Bellingham to become a sanctuary city. I noticed when we were saying the Pledge of Allegiance, all of them stood up, but none of them said the Pledge of Allegiance to our flag. So maybe she can give you a reason why she did that or didn't do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Thomas. Victoria Mady, Joseph McDonald, and Eric Boston.
Hello, everyone. My name is Victoria Matei. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm the president of the Blue Group at Western Washington University. So the Blue Group has served Western Washington University as the first club for undocumented immigrants and their allies. Our club consists of about 18 active members, but we know that there are more undocumented students on our campus. We have been very active the last 2 years educating people about our struggles and hurdles here in the United States. After this presidential election, many of us are uncertain about our futures, not only at Western, but in this country and our futures, and the futures of our families. The fear in the undocumented community is palpable, but our community is strong, and we have optimism that our allies will come through and fight this with us. So we come to you in need of help. We want Bellingham to come out as a sanctuary town for undocumented immigrants. Though it is prominently white, our undocumented community is alive and growing. Not only do we want Bellingham to come out as a sanctuary city, we wanted to encourage its neighboring cities to do the same. We know the president-elect has threatened to withhold federal funding from cities who decided to support their undocumented communities. However, we need you to decide. We need you to acknowledge the contribution that we have provided for this city and this country, and they are just threats that he's putting out. We hope you decide to work with us in the future, as there is a lot more work to be done. We have sent 3,000 emails this past weekend to staff, faculty, community members, all Bellingham Public Schools. We have sent Western Washington University a petition to come forward as a safe haven for undocumented students, and we have stated the resources we need and we stated the resources that we need on that campus to help undocumented students succeed. We ask that everyone sign this petition that can be found on our page. We have already received over 400 signatures in the last 24 hours. We hope to continue this with your support. Stop calling us dreamers because our dreams are real. We are a reality. We are undocumented, and we are unafraid, and we are unapologetic, and we are here to stay. There are people here opposing us tonight, but I want you to look into their eyes and hear their tone of voice and see where they're coming from, a place of hate, a place that I don't understand. Thank you for your time, and if you want to move forward and work with us, because we've already taken action, please get in contact with us. You have our information. Thank you.
Thank you, Victoria. Joseph McDonald, and then Eric and Maggie Lefkemper.
My name is Joseph McDonald, and you know I have a speech impediment. The Friday Peace Rally has turned into a riot since Trump was elected president. I encourage anyone to make a sign and express their minds and peacefully protest them if you don't like what is happening to our country, while you still have the right to peacefully protest. There's the typical times and places, but I think any time or street corner will do. You're going to see things get worse. Our government is going to do a total flip-flop. Misguided people in our government are going to say things are so bad everybody needs to go to church on Sunday. We need to make that a law, which, by the way, will violate religious freedom and break the Ten Commandments. The common belief held by everybody that you're going to burn in hell forever, I think is messed up. I also think that cutting down a tree this time of year is wrong, and so does the Bible in Jeremiah 10. Babylon will fall regardless of who's president. Jesus is coming soon, but not before the devil comes and impersonates him first. In Revelation 12:12, it says, "Woe unto the inhabitants of earth. The devil will come, and knowing his time is short." The real Jesus won't touch the earth and will come with an innumerable amount of angels, and with 60-pound hailstones described in Revelation 16:21, I don't think anyone should be deceived. Thank you, and God bless America while she's still here.
Thank you, Joseph. Eric, then Maggie, then Jean Hamilton. Well, it's scratched off. I thought maybe you put it on this list. Could you go ahead and then we'll insert you after that, Chris? Is that okay? Okay.
By the way, my name is Eric Bostrom rather than Boston, although my comments may remind you of the Boston Tea Party. My great-grandfather came from Sweden and settled in this town. I could show you a house that he built with his own hands over here. He had a son, which was my grandfather. He grew up here. And then he had a son, which was my dad, and he grew up here. And my dad went to Yale University and became a medical doctor, moved away, and then I came back to Western, and here I am. And I'm a preacher of the gospel. I'm against illegal immigration. I'm against sanctuary cities because it's not fair to those who have done everything legally. You're sort of almost giving the finger to those who are doing things legally, saying, well, we'd like to do it a different way. And so the request that was just asked here by these wonderful people was, will you allow us to break the law? Will you guys go along with us and break the law? It's embarrassing to me as an American to live in a city where the liberal agenda is so strong that there's an inability to accept that we've even elected a new president. By the way, he is my president, and he is the president of the United States of America. Now, a lot of people have unfounded fears about what Mr. Trump will do, but I'll tell you one thing, if we are a nation of laws, we're a nation of borders, and that's just the way it is. And to try to be otherwise is to be disingenuous. If you want to change the law, then change the law. But the law right now is that there are federal immigration laws. And if we go ahead and say, oh, we want to break those laws because we want to be kind of a cool liberal city, well, that is actually very disgusting to me. And I am embarrassed that my city would even entertain such an idea. God bless you, and God bless Bellingham.
Thank you, Eric. Okay, Chris, I'll let you step in there. And then after that is Maggie and Jean Hamilton and Sherry Moore.
Thank you. My name is Chris Diley. And yeah, I really appreciate you doing this because that was a deliberate sabotage. They crossed out my name on the list. And that individual that just spoke, he showed up after all we did. So somehow he got into my slot. So I'm not going to say that he scratched my name out, but, you know.
Just go ahead. That's your, go ahead.
Okay,
Use
yeah.
your time, Chris.
Anyhow, I'd like to speak on this. I didn't even come to speak about the sanctuary city, but this is like very important. I mean, because it ties into homelessness. As far as I'm concerned, Hugo Chavez was the only individual that was going to help homeless people and that was going to help poor people, and he's no longer living. Martin Luther King was the last person who was going to help poor people. He's no longer living. So the people that we have that were speaking out that were going to specifically try and help poor people, they're no longer living. And Hugo Chavez said that the reason why he fought, because he was a true leftist, that he was trying to help the poor people. That's why he ended up with cancer and died so quickly from cancer. He felt that it was politically motivated, his dying of cancer. And I believe it. I believe it. I listen to these people, and they don't want the poor people to be helped. And there is deliberate sabotage going on in here. I'm speaking about public safety right now, today. I experienced it today. I had to call the police. There are people infiltrating the homeless community. They're pretending to be homeless. They are not. They are quite likely Klan members because they're skilled in provocation, and they're skilled provocateurs. And I know this because I've been homeless for 8 years. And I know that I just want the public to be aware of this, that when you see people doing things that are deliberately offensive in public, and it looks like it's a homeless person doing this, to where you feel threatened by them and you wish that they weren't here, that the homeless were forcibly removed from society, think again. And just think to yourself, perhaps this is not really a homeless person. Perhaps this is someone who's been hired or someone who's within a hate group that's infiltrating the system to make the homeless look bad. Because the Klan hate the homeless people. The Klan hate their racist agenda. It's not against race. It's against poor people as well. So we are under attack, and it is dangerous right now. Our public safety is threatened right now, and I'm with these people that are here. I don't understand the immigration issue, but all I can say is that Hugo Chavez, I was extremely disappointed when he died because we don't have anybody standing up for us now. We've got Trump, and I'll tell you, I'm extremely depressed by this because it's not a liberal media. It's not a liberal media. It's a corporate media. And somehow we got hoodwinked, and now we've got him as the president. And we don't have anyone address. I've never heard one president address the issue of homelessness. I've never heard it come out of their mouth, ever. I'm 52 years old. They won't even address the issue to admit that it exists. So nobody's addressing it. And I don't want to go back to living out of plastic bags with rats eating my clothes out in Fairhaven like that happened. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. I just want to remind everyone that we have to stay away from political matters. So I know the election's kind of touchy for people right now, but if we could refrain our comments around, exclude those kind of comments from our public comment, that would be appreciated because we can't show any political liaisons or support here. So next is Maggie, and then Jean Hamilton, and I believe that's Sherry Moore. Okay.
Hello, good evening. My name is Maggie Lowe-Kemper, and I agree with Mr. Bostrom, this gentleman here, that if you decide to make this city a sanctuary city, it will set an extremely bad precedence, not only for the people here, but also for any visitors that may want to come here, like or people that are visiting. And that is wrong to make it a sanctuary city, because there are other people, foreigners from other countries, that came here legally. And here, these college students are not here legally. Why should they be benefiting from something like breaking the law? Because when you come here illegally, you are breaking our law here in America. So if you don't have respect for our laws, then they're not going to have respect for anything else. And as far as that young lady that got killed in San Francisco, that illegal alien should never have been given a second chance. He should have been deported and stayed in that country where he came from. So setting a bad precedent is not a good thing for this city at all, because it's going to have chaotic results from it. And if you don't respect our laws in this country, then you have no respect for yourself or other people or what we stand for in this country. So I highly and extremely, because I'm a woman and I'm a third-generation born American, highly, highly, highly like to recommend that you not make this a sanctuary city. It would not benefit our city at all, especially financially. Thank you.
Thank you, Maggie. Jean Hamilton, Sherry Moore, and then Galen Hertz.
I'm Jean Hamilton. I sit on the board of the Seahome neighborhood. I'm rising in support of the ordinance that Councilman Borneman is putting forward. It's not because I have any complaint about the building community. I'm very thankful for their contribution to our city, but it looks unfair when you have people making decisions about zoning and other things that could benefit them in the business that they're in. It would be much more fair if we had a wider representation. And I think that's all I had to say.
Thank you, Jean. Sherry? Shelley, thank you.
Hi, my name is Shelley Moore. I am here regarding the Sanctuary City Policy 2. My take is a little bit different than theirs. I had a daughter that graduated from the community college, was accepted at Western, tried to get into classes for a year, and was waitlisted for every class. So I would like you to think about the seats that these undocumented aliens are taking in those classes that make it really difficult for the legal U.S. citizens to get when they are going to these colleges. So please take that as another point of view as to what these proud undocumented aliens are doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Shelley. And Galen?
Hi, Council. My name is Galen Hers. I'm the Associated Students of Western Washington University's Local Issues Coordinator this year. And I wanted to share a little bit about my own family. My grandparents are Holocaust refugees. They were Jews born in Germany, and they managed to escape that country right before Kristallnacht and come to the United States. And I don't want that level of violence, trauma, and pain that my family and relatives experienced to be inflicted on any other people. And the hateful rhetoric that I'm hearing from the president-elect is reminiscent of what my grandparents heard before Kristallnacht. I'm very shaken by the fact that our president-elect just appointed Steve Bannon, who's a white nationalist, to be one of his chief advisors. And also, I've heard from a lot of people in our community, oh, everybody's so surprised that this could happen, that President Trump could be elected. White supremacy is what this country was founded on. It was founded on the attempted genocide of indigenous people and oppression of people of color. And progressive Bellingham is no exception, past and present. I've witnessed whites trying to run over people participating in a Black Lives Matter protest here. I've heard the N-word used towards people of color. And on campus at Western Washington University last year, white students sent racially charged death threats towards our student body president last year, a black woman. Council, I am asking you to please make space and take leadership from communities targeted by bigotry and white nationalism in this country. Immigrants, people of color, Muslims, Jews, tribes, LGBTQ folks, women, please listen to these groups, follow their leadership, and take action. Use the power that you have to protect and support these communities. A great start would be following the leadership of the Blue Group and making Bellingham a sanctuary city to make sure that our undocumented community members who contribute greatly to this city can live without fear of deportation. I look forward to your continued action on this issue and others to protect our community and make sure that Bellingham is a welcoming and safe space for all of our community members. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Galen. Is there anyone who didn't get to sign up who wishes to speak at public comment? If you want to, please come on down to the podium. And if you could just state your name for the record.
Hi, my name is Jamie Douglas. I didn't come here tonight expecting to speak, okay? But in listening to the comments here, I'm very disturbed.
Sorry. Go ahead.
Hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I was just nothing.
You know, one of the things that we do in our democracy is to try to decide about which direction we're going to go. There's always time to compromise about many things. One thing that we do not compromise about is civil liberties. And civil liberties under our Constitution are extended to everyone within our borders. That doesn't mean it only goes to citizens. It goes to visitors. Everyone's afforded these same protections. You know, the calling people illegals, in my opinion, is pretty much like calling an African American a nigger. I think that it's racist. I think it is disrespectful. We all have to allow space for each other, and we have to take care of each other. And protecting the individual rights of people within this country is paramount to who we are as a people. The undocumented aliens, many of these people have come here as children. They've grown up here. They've gone to school here. They're part of our communities. They're not any different than anybody else who is my neighbor. As a Christian, I'm compelled to treat my neighbor as myself. I sure wouldn't want to be treated the way we're treating these people. There's a lot of fear that exists because of the election that's taken place to civil liberties of individuals and citizens. I think it's important for us as a city to step up to take a stand to protect all of the people who are here within our city. I thank you for your time. I hope that you'll, I know this is a divisive issue. I know it's not going to be an easy thing to come to a resolution about, but I hope that you take into account that civil liberties are not up for vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Jamie. And can I just remind everyone, when you're entering and exiting, please use the back door while we're in council session. Thank you very much. Go ahead, state your name, please, and you can bring that microphone down to your height.
Thank you. My name is Olga Prado, and I'm a student at Western, and just kind of here to talk to you a little bit about like what's been mentioned. I'm a student, and I think for many of us, we didn't choose to be undocumented. Unfortunately or fortunately, our parents brought us here in search of a better life, in search of like better education, opportunities that they could not pursue in our home country. We have done nothing wrong, and calling us illegal or aliens is very dehumanizing and criminalizing. And as for the funds or money that we steal or like jobs as well, just in the state of Washington, according to the Taxation and Economic Policy, they released a document that showed that undocumented immigrants actually contributed $292,169,000 to the current state under the local tax. But if we were granted legal status, that would increase to $321,385,000. That's an increase of $29,216,000. And just going over the financial states and reports, I'm pretty sure our state would need that, and we could help build this community and just make it a better one where everybody can thrive. That is all.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Maria Prieto, and I'm here to speak for Sanctuary Cities. I would really appreciate it if you guys would consider Bellingham to become a sanctuary city. And I'm just ashamed and horrified that people would use the few that have committed crimes and just make us all into a lump and just call us criminals, because we're not all criminals. There's American citizens who do commit crimes as well as illegals, of course, but we are not all the same. We are good citizens, and we are here to contribute to this community who has helped us, and we wish to help you. That is all. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria.
Hi, my name is Andronetta Douglas, and I live in Ward 1 here in Bellingham. I am here to speak in favor of the Sanctuary City movement. I'm a retired RN. I lived in the Bay Area from 1975 until 1991. I did live in the Mission District, which is the Latino area, and I did not find that people there were afraid of the immigrants that were living there. There are anecdotes of crime by illegal immigrants. However, it was a very, very, very small proportion of crime. And it was not a significant issue in San Francisco. So while there are indeed true episodes, it is not across the board a common issue. And again, as Madeleine Albright says, anytime you go for group guilt, you have incredible prejudice and bias involved. You cannot use group guilt. It doesn't work. We're all human beings here. We're all whites here. Well, we're not all whites here, but whites are part of a group where there's incredible number of white people who commit crime. Are we all guilty? Maybe we are, according to the standard. Do you want to feel guilty for all the crimes of whites? I grew up Catholic. Do I want to be guilty of all the pedophiles in the Catholic Church? I don't think so. And that speaks to this issue. These people are my neighbors. I am a Christian. I believe that the good people I have worked with in the Bay Area and here who are undocumented aliens provide a great deal of financial input into our economy. The people I've worked with have been good people, and I think treating them badly can only point them into a bad future for everyone. It's going to create crime. It's going to create horrific situations. If we want to prevent future crime, we will not create this terrible form of discrimination. Thank you.
Thank you.
Council.
Hi.
My name is Ana Cervantes, and I'm also a student at Western Washington University. The reason I'm talking is because what the lady said about the illegal aliens taking the seats in the universities because her daughter didn't get into one of her classes. I've been there. I've also been waitlisted, and it's not just because I am undocumented. It really hurt me that you said that because we didn't choose to come here. I went to sleep in Mexico. I woke up here in the States. I had to leave my family. I had to leave my culture. And I had to learn a completely different language. Our parents brought us here not by choice. There's so much hate and there's so much fighting in Mexico that's not safe for us, and they wanted us to be here for a better future. And that's why I am here. I went to school and I had to work twice as hard. I can't afford the university because I don't get federal funding. I don't have a social security number. So the way I afford it is by applying for scholarships. I work 3 jobs. Above that, I'm a full-time student. And to answer the gentleman who said why we didn't put our hands over our hearts, is because this country, I consider it home. Mexico is not my home anymore. I've grown up here. I've been here for 20 years. And the reason why I didn't put my hand over my heart is because this country hates me. It hates my people, and it hates what I am. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak for public comment? Going once? Twice? Last call. Okay, so I'm going to close public comment. Thank you all for your participation this evening. We appreciate you being here. We're going to move on to our report outs from this afternoon's committee meetings, and we're going to start with Parks and Recreation, and Michael Lillquist is the chair.
Thank you, President Pinky Vargas. This afternoon we had one item for us. It was a consideration of the renaming of Franklin Park to Harriet Spinell Park. Harriet Spinell, who passed away earlier this year, was an active member of the Bellingham community, which included representing the 40th District in the state legislature for many years. She was also one of the proponents for converting the old Franklin Park site into a park, which it now is. The Seaholm Neighborhood Board and the York Neighborhood Association both passed motions for the name change and have brought forward the request to the city. Per city policies, the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board is charged with making recommendations for park names to the City Council for final approval, and indeed the City Parks and Recreation Advisory Board did pass a motion recommending the name change on August 20th, 2016 of this year. This afternoon we discussed it. The sentiment of the Parks Committee was unanimous in support of making the name change to honor the late great Senator Harriet Spinell, and I so move.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion in front of us. And a second? Any discussion? Okay. Councilman Borden.
Yeah, I just want to say about Harriet, she was my neighbor for a long, long time. She was one of my political mentors, and she was a really good friend and a great person, and I can't think of any better thing to do than to name that park on her behalf. So I will vote yes for that.
I think we all think it's fitting to name a park after Harriet. She did a lot of great things for the city and for our county. We have a motion in front of us. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 7-0, and we are going to name that park after Harriet Spinell.
And a committee report.
Thank you. The next committee we had was Lake Whatcom Reservoir Natural Resources, and Dan Hamill is the chair.
Thank you, President Vargas. We had one item before us this afternoon. This was related to integrating low-impact development standards into city code. Under the City of Bellingham's Phase 2 National Pollution Discharge and Elimination System permit, the city is required to review and revise development codes and standards to incorporate low-impact development principles. City staff from Public Works, Planning, and Parks Department have made substantial progress in this effort and will provide an overview and timeline for the next step. Public Works Director Ted Carlson provided a brief overview of this process, and this was for information only. End of committee report.
Thank you, Councilmember Hamill. And our next committee was Community and Economic Development, and April Barker is the chair.
All right, we had 2 items for committee. First item, interlocal cooperation agreement between Whatcom County and the City of Bellingham and the Port of Bellingham regarding a coordinated approach to fund economic development activities. Committee recommended approval, and I so move.
Any discussion? Okay, we have a motion in front of us. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 6-0 with 1 excused.
The second item for committee was a 2015 annual performance report on HUD, entitlement grants and housing levy. This was for information only. End of committee.
Thank you, April. Okay, we're going to move on to committee of the whole report out. We had 4 items today. First one was a progress update of the City of Bellingham energy reduction initiatives. We had a presentation by Sustainable Connections, who is doing the resource conservation management work for the City of Bellingham, assessing all of our buildings, and gave us recommendations for energy efficiency. And we did move to accept the recommendation to redo the lighting in the council chambers and ask staff to bring back a budget amendment to council, and that was unanimously recommended. I'm not sure if we need another vote on that. Do we not? Okay, all right. Just because it's a staff directed thing. The second item was an ordinance of the City of Bellingham, Washington regarding Planning Commission membership, amending section 2.42-020 of the Bellingham Municipal Code. We did a very healthy and lengthy discussion today on this amendment, and what we came to was deciding that we wanted to add some more context around it that is inclusionary and defines a little bit more what we're talking about in the roles and who we are also hoping to have on the commission. So Councilmember Hamel had a motion asking the staff. Oh, actually, Michael, that's right. I forgot. Michael stole Dan's motion. Yeah, I can't remember now. Michael moved that we direct staff to take Councilmember Hamel's language and bring forward changes for council to consider, and that motion was recommended unanimously. Our third item was the approval of city.
Yeah, I think Michael's motion was to take Dan's language and variations of that and put it to the ordinance that I brought forward and work on that to bring back.
Yes, to add it to Terry's draft.
Yes.
To revise the draft.
Yes, Terry's draft.
To add to the draft.
Yeah, okay. And I was just repeating what is in our executive summary, so we will have to talk to Marie about making changes on that language then. Okay? Okay. Peter.
So just, Peter Raffato, City Attorney's Office, just for clarification, I think it would be good to be clear, has the council voted to essentially take Dan's language and add it to the existing draft ordinance?
My motion was to indeed add that language to the proposed draft, but both Terry's original and that proposal would still, of course, come back for review and possible amendment.
We're not passing anything, we're just asking for revised language to come back. Correct? Okay. The third item was the approval, was the work session on the 2017-2018 biannual budget. We did have a couple of presentations today, and we did sort of run out of time, so we're still working on it. So I don't know if there's anything anybody wanted to talk about in our budget today, but it was just presentations for most of our. Okay, we have one set of minutes. Oh, no, we do not. I'm sorry. We have no minutes to approve for this evening, so check on that one.
I got a question about the budget. At what point will we take a vote to vote on your proposal to add money for the DB Commission?
Now, I don't want to misstate that incorrectly. I believe today that we said we would come back on December 5th and finalize any other budgets after we had the public hearing this evening. And we looked at where we were in our third quarter financials. So if anybody wants to, Councilmember Lillquist?
Is it inappropriate to consider that proposal now that we have had the hearing and we have had the financial report? It's a bit hasty. I'm just wondering.
To add to the budget.
I consider it a small amendment. It would, if it has support, it would move things along quickly.
Are other council members prepared to have that discussion at this time? Yeah? Okay, so just for clarification, what we're talking about, so the audience is clear, I did propose an increase in the budget to the DV Commission for $6,000 for this year.
Move approval.
Second.
Peter.
And if I could just clarify, what I think the intent of the motion is that when the final budget ordinance comes back for the final vote, that it would include that.
It would reflect that.
That is correct. Yeah.
Correct.
Okay, so we have a motion in front of us and a second. Any discussion? Okay. All those in favor? Again, this is for adding additional $6,000 for the DV Commission for the 2017 budget. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries 7-0?
No.
6-1.
No, oh, sorry, 6-1. I'm sorry, thank you. Councilmember Lillquist.
Yeah, DV stands for the Domestic Violence Commission.
Thank you.
That's
Thank you.
all.
I should not use acronyms. We get lost in that sometimes, so I appreciate when we point that out to people. Okay, so that does conclude our budget discussion for today. And we have no minutes, and I'm going to move on to older new business. We have a letter in front of us today to support an organization that is asking all associations and governments, et cetera, to support the MOTCA funding. So we did pass that around, and the council did unanimously.
MOTCA is an acronym for?
Model Control Toxins. What's the A? I forget the A.
ACT.
ACT, thank you.
It's a regulation which taxes polluting chemicals to use that money for cleanup of the pollution.
Of which we need some help with down
We
on the
should publish
waterfront
like
and a couple other places.
An
Yeah.
acronym dictionary that goes with the meeting.
Thank you.
Can I move approval?
Second. Okay, so we have a motion in front of us to approve signing the council to sign the letter in support of MOTCA reform. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Old or new business? Anyone else? No? Okay. I'm going to do a report out on our executive sessions from this afternoon. The first one was a litigation, Haskell versus City of Bellingham. Staff provided information and an update on pending litigation matter. Discussion and information only, no action was taken. Item number 2, potential litigation. Staff provided information on a refund claim against the city. Discussion and information only, no action taken. Third item, potential litigation. Staff provided information on a refund claim against the city. For discussion and information only, no action was taken. And with that, we are going to move to the mayor's report.
I have one appointment that is just for information, Michael Chavario to the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee. I'm very happy to have Michael there. I have a couple comments before you move on. One is I will also be writing a letter to AWC about MOTCA funding. I think it's really important that there's a joint, both the council and the mayor send something. So since I'm not signing your letter, I'll write one of my own.
Do you want to sign our letter?
No, no. I actually, because I was a champion for the state level, I have a little bit different spin on it. So I think it's better if I just write my own with what my experience has been rather than just sign on, because I really care about it a lot.
Good.
Secondly, I just wanted to, there's a couple consent items on the agenda tonight, and I just wanted to thank the AmeriCorps for our longstanding relationship with them. They weren't separate ordinances, so you can just vote with them on the consent agenda, but they have been such a good help to the city in supporting our natural resources and parks and recreation projects. And these are just dedicated young people who really enjoy being in Bellingham and volunteering for Bellingham, and they all hope they get a job in Bellingham when it's all over. I don't think we can promise them that right now, but someday, maybe. Also, I've asked Rick Sepler to come forward. He had made a presentation to me today. There's the questions about enforcement, and I've asked him to come forward and talk about what we're doing now. We're hiring someone to start the enforcement activities January 1st, so there'll be an actual dedicated person to do that. And then also to go through the town and gown, which is basically a way to both educate and report illegal activities that are going on in neighborhoods. And I really, and then the illegal rental units that we're also doing. So I just wanted him to be able to respond to you about that. So I won't go into all the details about it. And the last thing I want to say is because of a lot of the comments that were here tonight, Bellingham can or can't be a sanctuary city, but just so the public understands that we have policies in place right now that do not allow discrimination against people that are here undocumented. So we want civil discourse in our public meetings and in our public discourse, and we will be obviously protecting the rights through our existing ordinance until the county council decides what they want to do. But if there's anything, I've heard some stories secondhand. I haven't seen anything firsthand, but I just want everyone to know that if there's anything going on that needs to be reported to the mayor's office so I can pass those complaints along, please do that. If there's any changes that we can make that would make a lot of sense, I don't want people to be intimidated or afraid to live in our city. So I wanted to make that statement for both the council and for the public. And that's it.
Thank you, Mayor. So is Rick coming up, or you just gave a summary of his presentation? Oh, he's going to come. Okay, all right. Just checking. It's totally, I don't want to know. That's fair. We'll give him time when he's ready to come forward. I just was clarifying. Thank you, Mayor. We're going to move to consent agenda, but there is one agenda item that I actually have to read out loud. So before we take that motion, I'm just going to read it out. This is for the ordinance amending the 2015-2016 adopted budget, transferring $10,703.05 from the Low Income Housing Fund to the Community Development Block Grant, CDBG funds. The Community Development Block Grant Fund 190 has had a long-standing negative fund balance of $10,703.05 due to some administrative issues in the 1990s. The ordinance will correct this imbalance by transferring administrative dollars from the levy. The levy has benefited from being able to have administrative costs covered by the federal funds, and there are adequate administration dollars in the levy to cover this imbalance. So I just wanted to read that for the record. Okay, so we have consent agenda. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries 7-0 for consent agenda. Final consideration of ordinances.
Agenda Bill 21247, an ordinance of the City of Bellingham, Washington, adopting the 2016 City of Bellingham Comprehensive Plan, including the future land use map.
Move third and final. Second.
Gene Knutson.
Aye.
Michael Lillquist.
Aye.
Roxanne Murphy.
Aye.
Pinky Vargas.
Aye.
April Barker.
Aye.
Terry Borneman.
Unfortunately, because of the continued inclusion of H18, I will have to vote no.
Dan Hamel.
Aye.
Ordinance passes 6-1. Terry Borneman opposed. Agenda Bill 21294, an ordinance of the City of Bellingham relating to Bellingham's Comprehensive Plan, amending Area 6 of the Puget Neighborhood Plan and Section 20.00.130 of the Bellingham Municipal Code, Table of Zoning Regulations for Puget Area 6.
Move third and final.
Second.
Michael Lillquist.
Aye.
Roxanne Murphy.
Aye.
Pinky Vargas.
Aye.
April Barker.
Aye.
Terry Borneman.
Aye.
Dan Hamel.
Aye.
Gene Knutson.
Aye.
Ordinance passes 7-0. Agenda Bill 21398, an ordinance of the City of Bellingham, Washington, amending various sections of the Bellingham Municipal Code in order to adopt by reference several criminal codes of the Revised Code of Washington.
Move third and final.
Second.
Roxanne Murphy.
Aye.
Pinky Vargas.
Aye.
April Barker.
Aye.
Terry Borneman.
Aye.
Dan Hamel.
Aye.
Gene Knutson.
Aye.
Michael Lillquist.
Aye.
Ordinance passes 7-0. Agenda Bill 21415, an ordinance amending the 2015-2016 adopted budget, appropriating an additional $1,122,100 of expenditures in the Medic One Fund to account for a change recommended by the Washington State auditors regarding pass-through revenue.
Move third and final.
Second.
Pinky Vargas.
Aye.
April Barker.
Aye.
Terry Borneman.
Aye.
Dan Hamel.
Aye.
Gene Knutson.
Aye.
Michael Lillquist.
Aye.
Roxanne Murphy.
Aye.
Ordinance passes 7-0. Agenda Bill 21416, an ordinance amending the 2015-2016 adopted budget, appropriating an additional $320,000 of expenditures in the Medic One Fund for the purchase of an ambulance, building repairs, and for retro pay.
Move third and final.
Second.
Pinky Vargas.
Aye.
April Barker.
Aye.
Was that yes?
A bubble in my throat, I'm sorry. Aye.
Thank you. Terry Borneman.
Aye.
Dan Hamel.
Aye.
Gene Knutson.
Aye.
Michael Lillquist.
Aye.
Roxanne Murphy.
Aye.
Ordinance passes 7-0. Agenda Bill 21419, an ordinance of the City of Bellingham, Washington, relating to the levying of taxes and establishing the amount to be raised in 2017 on the assessed valuation of the property within the city.
Move third and final.
Second.
Terry Borneman.
Aye.
Dan Hamel.
Aye.
Gene Knutson.
Aye.
Michael Lillquist.
Aye.
Roxanne Murphy.
Aye.
Pinky Vargas.
Aye.
April Barker.
Aye.
Ordinance passes 7-0.
Pinky, I forgot one thing under old or new business, and I wanted to bring this up before because I will not be able to be there this Saturday for the ribbon cutting ceremony for the new Costco. I just want to take this opportunity and thank the staff for all their work on this, Costco for believing in Bellingham, Mayor Linville, past Mayor Pike, everybody who was involved in this. This was a long and arduous process. It took a long time. Perseverance by the property owners, perseverance by people who wanted to make sure that the City of Bellingham kept one of their beloved retail hubs. And it wasn't easy, but it was a lot of hard work done by a lot of different people, and they all deserve credit. So I just want to say thank you, and I'm glad that Bellingham stepped up to the plate and worked very well with them and come to a good solution. So I'm sorry I won't be there this Saturday, but I want everybody to know that it's been a long process, and everybody knows it's been long.
It's one of the only things that'll get me up at 7 on a Saturday.
Okay, and one thing I didn't mention as well is that tomorrow I'm leaving for the National League of Cities Conference to present on a City Solutions Summit on all the great things the City of Bellingham is doing around the Bellingham Energy Prize. So I'm very proud to represent our city and our utilities. And with that, I want to thank everybody for joining us. Our next meeting is December 5, 2016. Until next time, we are adjourned.